Welcome, dear friends. As you can see, we have Vesak Kaccayana with us today, and I'm inviting them to lead the meditation for this morning. So I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Ray. Oh, good morning, friends. It's good to see you this morning. So this is the second day of our Vesak week. And I think we have quite a number of programs scheduled throughout the week, all sorts of talks and videos and Vesak themed things to tell you about. And so you're going to hear the story of Vesak a number of times this week, perhaps from us, perhaps if you're going to another temple, everyone will be telling you the story of Vesak. And the story, well, just the very brief version, is that today we are celebrating the birth, the awakening, and the passing away into parinibbana of the Buddha, the three great events. And for the meditation time, we don't want to have so many words, so many stories about this. So I was reflecting on how to lead a Vesak meditation. And I was inspired by something that I heard from our founding abbess, Ayatollah about 2 weeks ago at the new moon. That was the beginning of the Vesak month at the new moon. Vesak day itself is the full moon on Tuesday evening. So for the beginning of Vesak month, 2 weeks ago, story a little bit, but then she said the thing that stuck with me, which is that the story is just to point us back to ourselves. That's what it's for, that these stories are for inspiration to our own practice, to our own liberation, to seeing these same patterns in ourselves that could be seen in the life of the Bodhisattva up to his awakening, and then the Buddha post-awakening. So coming back and seeing that within ourselves, thinking of birth, thinking of death, and thinking of the awakening that can happen to come into understanding of those things. So I invite you to take a meditation posture. Settle in, have your back upright, not too stiff, not too tight, but upright and dignified. Nice solid base that you're sitting on. Take a moment to feel into your body, feel how you're situated, feel the touch of the earth under your seat, under your feet. And so we're going to reflect today on these three great events of the Buddha, the life of the Buddha. The one that is actually most frequently taught as an object of meditation is the reflection on death. This comes at the end of this particular story. The reflection on death is to bring us into a greater sense of the impermanence of our own lives and being able to see the flow, being able to see that we don't really know how long we have in this body, in this life. Additionally, you think to yourself, this may be my last breath. And each breath, consider that. We don't know when some accident may happen. We don't know when some illness may arise. It probably won't happen in the next breath, but we don't really know. This is not to inspire us to fear and depression. This is to inspire us to a greater sense of life in this present moment. So take a moment to feel the breath, to be interested in the breath, knowing that you don't know what's going to happen with it. Let's just sit with that for a moment. And then reflecting, there's not only death, there's also birth. This too is part of the natural cycle of things. This too is a mystery in a way. And consider in the course of pregnancy, pregnant person, they don't know when exactly it's going to come. You can think about that 8th or 9th month. Some of you may have experienced this, some of you may have not. But we can imagine knowing this great event is coming. It's going to change things. And we can predict it. We can prepare for it. But we don't know when the moment will come, when that new life arises. You have to be ready to put all the other things down, everything about daily life. When that new life comes, you go. You let that natural cycle take over. In the story, the mother of the Buddha, the mother of the Bodhisattva, she was traveling back to her own family when it came time for the Bodhisattva to be born. And so she gave birth outside, under a tree. Not expected, right at that time. Not as planned. So consider for yourself. I don't know what my next birth will be. You can take that how you like. A birth into each moment in this life, a birth into another life. I don't know how things are going to go. There's this natural cycle of it. See if you can touch into, very gently, that sense of uncertainty. Again, how are things going to be in the future? What's going to be born? And just offering space for that contemplation in yourself, whatever might come up. Holding it gently, holding it lightly. Coming back to that breath. If things get scattered in some way, coming back to the breath. And for awakening too, we can look at that as a natural cycle, a natural process, something that unfolds little by little as we look clearly at all these other natural cycles, the cycle of birth and death. When we come back and look at that within ourselves, we begin to understand how that is for us here, how that is for others. It's a gradual process. Just like birth comes following the gradual process of pregnancy, Just like death comes, following the natural process of life, awakening comes, following the natural path and growth of the practice. In the story, the Buddha, when he was the Bodhisattva, he practiced for many lifetimes. And then in the last lifetime, he went forth from his family. He practiced austerities for some years. Eventually he saw through and beyond the practice that he had been doing, the austerities, and also the sensual pleasures from his family life. And he had a kind of knowing that it was time to sit down under the Bodhi tree and stay there until awakening came. He had come into the end of the process and he knew. In the same way that you can know when that baby's coming, you can feel it on its way. You can know when death is coming. If you're sitting with someone by their bedside, sometimes, not always, but sometimes you can know. The Buddha had that knowing, that it was time to sit down and stay until it was done. We may not be there yet, but we can look around and know where we are. We can know that we're in some stage in this process. We can know that awakening, enlightenment is growing within us as we apply ourselves to the practice. We can make ourselves ready so that when the time comes, we're able to sit down and stay until we're done. Until we're free. So I invite you just to come back to the breath in silence for a little while, but with this perspective and this reflection on it, watching the unfolding of this process of awakening right here and now in this moment. Letting it grow, being ready, making yourself ready, just by seeing what it is here and now. So I'll be quiet for a bit, and we'll sit for just a few minutes, cultivating this awakening process in ourselves. as we approach the end of this meditation, I invite you to reflect on everything that has arisen and passed away during this time. The mind is so quick, it might have been many things that came and went. Or maybe you settled deeply, it's been quiet and still, but still the end is coming. I'm going to ring that bell. So how is it to be awake to this transition, to this change from one thing to the next, the end of the meditation, the beginning of something new? Awakening starts with just watching that, seeing clearly how the mind is with this change.
Will you add some reflection?
I think I may have started with my reflection. Is there anything you would like to comment on?
So I'm a little bit, excuse me for not having my own computer, so everything's not exactly the same, but I want to acknowledge all the people here, Ananayo, Barbara, Bobcat, Diane, Johanna, Meredith, Dory, Patipada, Rihanna, Rumani, Sharanya, and we are so appreciative and aware of having the shared common energy and a unity and silence of all of us practicing together, even though we're coming in from different geographical locations. Nevertheless, there is a mental connection and some aspect that the practice, the meditation, is co-created among all of us who are participating together. I'm aware these days I've been thinking a lot about Buddha's legacy for us, the instructions that he thought of emphasizing during his last year, as described in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, when the Buddha knew that he was going to be leaving the physical form. And through his compassion, realized that there were many beings that were not yet enlightened who could feel the grief and loss about that. And then the question about what's the most important thing to keep the Dhamma alive so that there's still the possibility of awakening. And one part of that, which I think ties back to your theme, is that simply acknowledging, appreciating, and welcoming, showing hospitality for arahants, meaning people who deserve to be respected. So we don't have to worry about who has the authority to certify that any particular individual is or is not a fully enlightened arahant. But instead, simply look around and find the spiritual teachers who inspire us, who have the beautiful, sublime qualities of practice. And even not only considering Buddhist teachers, even teachers in other spiritual traditions, whoever is worthy of respect because of their spiritual aspiration, their spiritual striving, and their spiritual realization, and then to show the gratitude, say, oh, how wonderful to have a person like that in our country. How wonderful if there's a person like that who's alive in our world. And that kind of welcome and respect also opens the space for us to respect the noble within ourselves. Sometimes it could be simply having the noble aspiration or some kind of seed, the seed of awakening in us. You know, what was the reason that brought us to this practice at the very beginning? There must have been something there, some willingness to wake up. And so then seeing that within us, honoring that, welcoming that, respecting that, offering hospitality. So just like later on today, some family is going to offer some food to the monastics because they think that we have the aspiration to awaken and they want to support us in that aspiration. Just the same way, the things that you do to yourself and the things that you do for yourself, which is nourishing your own aspiration for awakening, which is honoring and respecting your own aspiration for awakening, acknowledging the capacity that you have individually as a human being, the capacity for awakening. And so that's one thing that comes to mind as a result of what you were sharing. The Buddha, at the end, in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, seemed to be recognizing that the monastic sangha, the sangha of dedicated practitioners and of the ordained practitioners, is existing within society. And so he was emphasizing things like the harmony within the sangha, having a sangha that meets together frequently, having a sangha that has respect and appreciation for what went before and does not simply throw away the things that were decided beforehand. And then it seems, okay, it's kind of conservative, isn't it? But then when we see how the world can be constantly falling into chaos, if something was established before which was good, which was supporting virtue, supporting harmony, supporting mutual respect, and then we have these customs and this culture. If we see it's good, then we honor and respect that came beforehand. We respect the elders. We respect what our parents knew or what our grandparents knew. And so it's kind of, to me, very like touching to see the Buddha is such a human being. He's leaving this world. His sankharas are getting ready to break up. He's realized the ultimate. It's like, it's not a problem for him. And yet, with compassion, seeing what people need in order to be able to sustain and grow and develop, then emphasizing the simple virtues and the simple practices, the things that almost you could say any child knows. Any child knows about appreciating mommy and daddy. Any child knows about being sympathetic and compassionate. And if somebody is suffering, you want to say, there, or please don't suffer, please don't worry. Any child knows that. Any child knows what kindness is. Children naturally know to be good. So then these capacities, these human capacities that we have are the groundwork that evolves into the sublime ultimate realization, the ultimate awakening. And so then the Buddha taught us to practice appreciation, practice gratitude, practice kindness, practice being willing or being inclined towards that which is for our own happiness and welfare, and for the happiness and welfare of those around us, and for the happiness and welfare of all. Also, that inclination towards our harmonious kind of existence, taking care, being careful not to create a disturbance for other people, being careful not to act in a way that, because of your own selfishness, could create some serious upset in somebody else because you didn't take the time or trouble to be aware of how they feel, how they're taking things. These are so simple, they're so natural, but they are the foundation for having a world in which it's possible for the practice to grow and thrive and mature, and where it's possible to have the kind of world in which people can wake up.